Some stories, they just feel ancient the moment they're written, right? They tap into something so fundamental, so raw, it's like they've always been there. Well, today, we're diving into one of those stories. It's just a short one-act play from the coast of Ireland, but man, it carries the weight of an absolute epic. So let's get into it and explore what makes this thing so powerful. I mean, listen to that. The tragic masterpiece of our language in our time. That is not a small claim. Just think about that for a second. This was written back in 1909. When this play, Riders to the Sea, first came out in 1904, it obviously struck a major chord. So what is it? What's the secret sauce in this incredibly bleak but also beautiful story that got people talking like that? And that's really the core question we're tackling, isn't it? We're going to unpack just how a story about this one fishing family on a remote, tiny Irish island ends up capturing such a huge universal truth about life and loss and, well, just enduring. Okay, so here's how we're going to do this. We're going to look at it from two angles. First, we'll zoom right in on the heartbreaking story of the family at the center of it all. Then, once we've done that, we'll zoom back out and see how the play's real-world origins and these big elemental themes, how they lift it up into something that's, well, truly timeless. All right, so where did a story like this even come from? Believe me, it wasn't just invented out of thin air. No, this story grew right out of the rock and the sea of a real place, a place where life was just a constant daily struggle. So the playwright, this guy, John Millington Synge, he didn't just dream this world up. He actually lived in it. I mean, he spent a ton of time just absorbing the culture, the language, all the stories of the people who called this incredibly harsh landscape home. Yeah, Synge based his entire play on the stories he was hearing while he was living on Inishmaan. That's the middle island of the three Aran Islands, way off the coast of Ireland. And listen, this was not some tourist spot. This was a community totally shaped by its isolation and its complete absolute dependence on the sea. And what's so fascinating is how directly Synge used what he saw and heard. For instance, he heard this true story about a man's body washing ashore way up in Donegal, and they could only identify him because of his specific homespun clothes. I mean, that's exactly what happens in the play. And the visions, the second sight that the main character has, that wasn't just some dramatic invention. It was a common belief, a very real part of life for the islanders. He literally wove these threads of truth right into the fabric of his masterpiece. Okay, so now let's zoom in on the play itself. Let's talk about the family at the very heart of this tragedy, and the matriarch who has just seen, well, way too much grief. From the second this play begins, the sense of loss is it's overwhelming. The main character, this elderly woman named Moria, she has already been completely hollowed out by grief. Think about it. The sea, the very thing that gives them life, has also been their tomb. It's already taken her husband, her father-in-law, and 5 of her 6 sons. So the entire drama, all of the tension, it just hangs on the fate of her last 2 sons. One, Michael, has been missing at sea for 9 days. Everyone pretty much assumes the worst. And then there's Bartley, her last hope, who is getting ready to sail despite a rising storm and his mother literally begging him not to go. And then the confirmation of Michael's death arrives, and it's just absolutely heartbreaking. His sisters find out that a stocking and a shirt recovered from a drowned man way up north belong to him, and one of them says this: "Ah, Nora, isn't it a bitter thing? It just perfectly captures their sorrow. It's not just that he's gone, but that he died all alone, with no one there to properly mourn him." You can just feel this tragic momentum building, can't you? It's like a train you can't stop. Even with this awful news about his brother, Bartley feels like he has no choice. He has to ride to the sea. He has to go sell their horses. It's about survival. The needs of the living are pushing him straight into the path of the very same fate that took everyone else. And then we get the moment that just seals his fate. It's chilling. Moria rushes after Bartley to give him a blessing she forgot, and she has this terrifying vision. She says, "I went down to the spring well, and I seen Michael himself." She sees her dead son Michael riding on a horse right behind her living son Bartley. It's a phantom rider, a terrible omen. And right then, she knows. She knows with absolute certainty that Bartley is already gone. This all leads us to the play's conclusion, which is, honestly, it's astonishing. Because after losing her very last son, you would expect this woman to just collapse in grief, right? But that's not what happens. Something else happens entirely. Something profound. And just as you'd expect, the inevitable happens. Just like her vision predicted, Men from the village carry Bartley's body back to the house. The pony knocked him into the sea, and he drowned. The sea has finally taken the very last one of her sons. But here's the crucial part. It's Moria's reaction. There's no scream. Instead, there's this calm, almost serene acceptance. She says, "They're all gone now, and there isn't anything more the sea can do to me. No man at all can be living forever, and we must be satisfied." Her long, long war with the sea is finally over, because there's nothing left for it to take. And in that total, absolute devastation, she finds this strange and almost terrible kind of peace. A critic back then, a guy named Edward J. O'Brien, he just captured it perfectly. He called it a great peace, the peace that passeth understanding. He saw that what Moria feels at the end isn't defeat. It's something else. It's a kind of transcendence. It's a peace that's born only when both fear and hope are gone. She's finally passed all the way through the storm and come out on the other side. Okay, so let's zoom back out again. Why? Why does this very specific story about one family on one tiny island feel so universal? Why does it hit us just as hard today as it did more than 100 years ago? Well, that same critic, O'Brien, he had a pretty compelling theory. He basically said that our modern lives, right, they're a complicated tangle. We're surrounded by creature comforts that kind of insulate us from the really big fundamental truths. But this play, it strips all of that away. We're just left with these primal emotions. This family that's basically naked to wind and sky, facing these massive elemental forces head on. And really, that's the core of it, isn't it? The sea in this play isn't just water. It's a metaphor. It's fate. It's mortality. It stands in for any force, illness, time, nature itself, that is just way bigger and more powerful than we are. Moria's struggle is in the end our struggle. It's humanity's struggle. So by setting his story in such a raw, elemental world, Synge manages to lift it up. He sets it high in a timeless atmosphere of universal action. It stops being just a story about an Irish family and becomes a story for anyone, anywhere, who has ever felt powerless against some kind of overwhelming force. And that's really what the play leaves us with. It kind of forces us to ask ourselves, what's the sea in my life? What are the great, relentless forces that I'm gonna have to face? And maybe the biggest question of all is, when that time comes, can any of us find that same strange, terrible peace that Moria finds in the end?